A gust of wind blowing and a shower of roses. A mythical nude of a woman washing up on shore. An attempt to modestly cover the arrival of the carefree female figure. A story of the birth of a goddess. Sandro Botticelli's Birth of Venus was created with tempera on a canvas. Throughout the 15th century, canvas was actually used to create decorative works for noble houses. In the painting, we see the goddess of love and beauty, Venus, arriving on the island of Cyprus. Zephyr and a nymph create the winds that are blowing Venus to land. She rides in on a large shell. Once on shore, Venus is met by who some have interpreted as the aura of spring. The aura of spring is holding out a floral printed cloak as she waits to cover a nude Venus. Venus is the Roman goddess of love, sex, beauty, and fertility. According to tradition, after Venus's birth, she rode to the Zithra shore on a seashell and sea foam. Zephyrus carries the nymph Chloris as they blow the goddess to shore where Pomona, the goddess of spring, awaits to cover her. Sandro Botticelli is known as one of the greatest painters of the Florentine Renaissance. His works, Primavera and The Birth of Venus, are said by many to embody the spirit of the Renaissance. Botticelli focused on creating works that integrated harmonious scenes with compelling human forms for the majority of his career. He went on to earn patronage from the Medici family and other wealthy patrons. Botticelli painted many works for marriages with themes of romance or famous heroines. 4 panel paintings, Primavera, Pallas and the Centaur, Venus and Mars, and The Birth of Venus, were used to show various aspects of love. In Sandro Botticelli's Adoration for the Magi, the figure in the lower right corner is believed to be a depiction of himself. 4 of Sandro Botticelli's most famous works include Primavera, Pallas and the Centaur, Venus and Mars, and The Birth of Venus. These 4 paintings were used to illustrate different takes on love. Primavera on its fruition in marriage, Pallas on the dominance of male lust by female chastity, Venus and Mars on celebrating the woman's triumph after the male's sexual tire, and The Birth of Venus on the birth of love. Venus, in a general context, is a Roman goddess of love, sex, beauty, and fertility. She is the equivalent of Aphrodite in Greek mythology. Venus and Aphrodite share similar poses and similar hair colors in many depictions of both goddesses. The 2 goddesses of love have often been mistaken to be one another. The Venus de Milo was found on the Aegean island of Melos. It is a representation of the goddess Venus. However, when it was found, it was thought to represent Aphrodite. This perfectly shows how the 2 of them are often confused because they are depicted so similarly. The 2 goddesses are so strongly tied together because Roman sculptors often based sculptures of Venus off of the sculptures that were done of Aphrodite. The Venus de Milo was actually a sculpture that was based off a Greek bronze original that was Aphrodite. Both Venus and Aphrodite are meant to come off as an image of a woman untouchable by humans. Neither Venus nor Aphrodite makes eye contact with the viewer. La Primavera shows Venus representing a peaceful environment as well as relating her to nature and spring. When Botticelli creates Venus and Mars, he is depicting the idea that love, Venus, conquers war, Mars. In Birth of Venus, Venus's depiction is one based on the writings of Homer and really is just creating an image of the goddess's birth, and thus the birth of love. Botticelli's portrayal of Venus usually has her taking on a role of an enlightening moral instructor. He shows Venus in a positive light rather than a negative one, as can be seen in Isabella d'Este, Studio Low, Mantegna's Parnassus, Mars and Venus, or Perugino's Battle of Love and Chastity, in which a woman's role and function in society at the time could be blamed for the less than favorable connotation. Botticelli's two most famous works of Venus, Primavera and Birth of Venus, are both believed to have been patroned by the Medici family, specifically because of the orange trees. Oranges are considered a symbol or an emblem of the Medici family. The painting suggests that it was made for a humanist patron specifically. Venus appears in full nude, elegantly covering her private areas rather than seeming to hastily hide them. While nudity can often be associated with sin and lust, it can also represent purity and divinity. Venus's modest pose is meant to link back to a time before this one, a time where idealizing beauty in art was a greater goal. Venus's nudity and beauty were supposed to stand for sacred and profane love that would then create a context of marriage, which is what many art historians believe Botticelli painted this for, as a wedding gift. Botticelli's Birth of Venus did not appeal to everyone, especially not to those who believed the Medici family to be corrupted or vile. Wealthy Florentine patrons would have been more intrigued by this work. The Birth of Venus is elegant and classical, which is something the upper class did appreciate. What was also almost testing the waters during this time was Venus's obvious nudity. During the Renaissance era, seeing that much nudity was strange and almost unpleasant. However, with being based off of Aphrodite, Venus also gets away with it as she covers up her most private areas. Her long hair covers her pubic area while her right hand comes up to cover one of her breasts, though it is still a nude and did conjure up some discomfort. For the most part, though, people find the image of a nude Venus tranquil and admirable. She is the goddess of love after all. Sandro Botticelli provided a lot of big and important contributions to the art movement in the 15th century. His portrayal of Venus in both Primavera and the Birth of Venus is in a positive light. He uses his work to celebrate her beauty and the idea of love. He elegantly uses nudity and other tactics to call back to classical works of art. Botticelli's intention for this painting has not yet been confirmed, but overall it can be assumed that this is a work of love and simplicity.